Hello, my name's David Bird. I want to talk to you today about student-generated textbooks. When I was earning my master's in science education at Cal State Northridge, I did my research on science textbooks and why students don't read them. The answer might surprise you, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. What I want to talk to you about is what I created. I created DIY textbooks. Instead of a science textbook, students get a hardbound sketchbook that is full of blank pages. What they do is they put all of their notes for the class in this book, and they create an image for every concept. So by the end of the semester, they have written their very own science textbook. And I guarantee you, this will be the only science textbook your students have read 100% of. Let's go look at my research. Okay, so before I start, I want to mention that all the images you'll see are student-drawn images from do-it-yourself textbooks from my marine biology class. So my research on science textbooks were that the majority of students are not reading them, that textbooks do not lend themselves to differentiated learning, and that textbooks are expensive. So I wanted to find an alternative to science textbooks. My research had me questioning whether or not a student-generated textbook would lend itself better to a science classroom than a traditional textbook. So my research on why students don't read textbooks actually surprised me. I mean, a lot of us probably assume students are not reading textbooks for the wrong reasons, but actually students are not reading textbooks because they're smart. What ends up happening is a science teacher like myself will assign a section of the textbook to read. The student will do it, they'll do the reading, they'll come to class, and then the teacher will teach that material anyway. The reason is science teachers really care about their subject, and if the topic is really important, they're going to make sure that the students understand the topic. And so even though they assign the reading, they're still going to go over the material in class. What eventually happens is students realize, I don't have to do the reading because the teacher's going to teach the material anyway. And so why do something that you don't have to do? It's not that the students were lazy, it's just the students were more economical with their time. Why read when you don't have to? And I don't blame the science teachers either because I do that. I would assign reading and then teach the material anyway. Some other reasons that students weren't reading the textbook is because the language in the textbook might be beyond them, or it might be too advanced for the grade level that they're at. And when a student's not understanding what they're reading, they end up giving up. And so I don't think that science textbooks are written in a way that is approachable by students. Also, as most of us know, students like to learn in different ways: tactile, visual, auditory, and some students really enjoy reading. But when you have a traditional textbook, it's only appealing to one group of students. It's only appealing to the students that enjoy reading. It's not appealing to any of those other students. Studies show that students only retain about 10% of what they read, but studies on drawing has shown that when a student sketches or draws, it really increases their memory retention. So what I did was I took 55 high school marine biology students from Providence High School, and I did this in the fall semester of 2013. All 55 students would create their own textbook instead of using a traditional textbook. After that, I would compare their marine biology grades to their previous life science grades. All of the students' notes and illustrations would be placed in this DIY textbook. All of the labs that we do, all the homework assignments, everything will be placed in this book. All of the notes will be written by hand. All of the illustrations can either be done by hand or the students can choose to print them if they want. Because the students were not using a traditional textbook, I had to create some other resource for the students. And so I did this by creating a website. I created davidbirdscience.com. And this website takes full advantage of the CSCS, Computer Supported Collaborative Science pedagogy that I was taught at Cal State Northridge. The website allows the class to use collaboration along with digital textbooking. The marine biology class would also have a day-to-day agenda where the students can access all of the class notes. So this brings me back to my question: would a student-generated textbook facilitate learning in a science classroom? So this is the data that I collected. If you look at the bar graph, you'll see that the blue is the traditional textbook grades compared to the DIY textbook grades. Here's what the spread looks like. With the traditional textbook, we had about 31.9% of students earning A's. With the DIY textbook, we had almost 60%. That's almost a double in A's. For B's, the traditional textbook had about an average of 23.4%. For the DIY textbook, we had a 31.5%. For C's, with the traditional textbook, we had 40.4%. With the DIY textbook, we had a 9.3%. And with the traditional textbook, we had D's and F's, and we had none with the DIY textbook. So in this study, the A's almost doubled in the class. 32% of the students earned A's with the traditional textbook compared to 62% of them earning A's with the DIY textbook. The data showed that the difference between using a standard textbook and a DIY textbook was statistically significant. In conjunction with the data collection, I also gave an anonymous survey to the students and asked them what they thought of the DIY textbook. These are some of the things that they said. They said it helped them learn more. It helped them retain more information. They said they were more invested in the class and the subject, and it helped appeal to their learning style. They were also much more organized by creating all of their notes and images in one place. Furthermore, 95% of the students said they preferred the DIY textbook to a traditional textbook. 100% of them said they learned more using the DIY textbook. So I'm assuming that 5% is because they didn't like the extra work of having to create the DIY textbook. Now, after working with my DIY textbooks for over 10 years, they've evolved a lot. Let me show you what they currently look like and how they work in conjunction with davidbirdscience.com. So I created davidbirdscience.com to work in conjunction with the DIY textbooks. So if you go to davidbirdscience.com, I have the courses that I teach, and we'll use marine biology as the example. If you click on marine biology, it takes you to the home page where you have the day-to-day agenda, which is the daily notes for the entire semester. So the notes for the entire semester are already laid out for the students, and this is really important. And so let's click on a day to see what it looks like. So we'll click on day 2. So if you go to day 2, it'll give you a title. It'll say light, pressure, and weather. Those are the topics that we'll be learning. You can see that there's a quiz, so the kids have an oceans quiz. There's a video for the students to watch. They're going to be learning light and the ocean. Why is the ocean blue? There's a video that goes along with that. Images. There are examples of past students' work. So these are the DIY textbooks of previous students, so that way students can see examples. Here's an image we'll be talking about photic zones, more examples from previous students, demos that will happen in class, videos, and notes that will go along with it. And so if we go back to the homepage of marine biology, the students have the instructions for the DIY textbook. So they can click on this and this gives them all the instructions. So I've modified this over the years to make it work best. And so the instructions are that the students have to write everything that is in black text in their sketchbook. And so the way that I made this even easier for them is if it has a white background, it has to be handwritten in your sketchbook. If it falls in one of these green bars, you do not have to write it in the sketchbook. And so the students are writing all of the black text, which is their notes, and all of the green barred work is instructions or things that they will be doing or videos. And so what makes something science? This will be part of their notes. And so they'll be writing this in their sketchbook. And so this will be a video that they'll watch, and there's instructions. So they're to watch this video, they're to create a box inside their DIY textbook where they'll include notes or any questions that they have, they'll have to include an image. And so going through these notes, they'll write all of these. There's class activities that they don't have to write in their sketchbook, but they'll at least see that this is coming up and this is something that they'll have to work on or do. Videos that help explain the content, more notes for them, and images that go along with the notes. And so I tell the students that they have to have an image for every concept, but to make that easier for them, I let them know anywhere that I have an image, they have to have an image. And the rules that I've created were to help encourage the students to do some exploration on their own. And so the students have to handwrite all of their notes, and the reason they have to handwrite all their notes is I don't want them just printing my notes, or I don't want one student to cut and paste and everyone else print from them. So they have to handwrite their notes. Also, the tactile motion of writing their notes will also help them with memorization. Also, my images they cannot use. And so they can draw their own images, they can print their own images, they just can't print the images that I used on davidbirdscience.com. And the only reason I create that rule is because, again, I don't want them just to print my website. They can go to Google Images and find their own image. That's totally fine. I just don't want them to use my exact image that I used. And so they'll go through these notes, they'll write down everything that they're supposed to write, they will find pictures that they will use in their own book, they'll watch the videos, and they will do this for each day. Having detailed notes for every day's class has been great for the students because if a student is absent or misses something, they can easily click on a day. So let's click on algae. They'll click on this day and they will see everything that we talked about in class. They'll have images to help them with it. And even any assignments or any activities that we did in class, they'll be able to see them right here. And so this really helps when students are absent, if they're sick, if something happens, they can at least see all of the details and everything that happened in class. I've also recently created a YouTube channel, David Bird Science, that corresponds with these lessons. And so if you click on David Bird Science, what you'll see is these are the lectures and the lessons that my students are currently learning. And I've been uploading videos every week. If you want to know more or have any questions, feel free to reach out. It was nice sharing with you.